Hello, and welcome to Justified Jewel Podcast. I'm your host, yours truly, Joann Cox. And you can reach me at www.justifieddjewel.com. But today we are going through our third episode. That's right. And we told you that we would be here every day with my partner and friend and Brian Winters. We are on the economics and political systems for today. And today we will be talking about a Jubilee for Justice. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome, Joann. Thanks for having me back.
Yes. So we're going to just dive in with, let us talk about the definition. What is Jubilee?
What is a jubilee? Have you heard this term? It makes you think of a party, maybe? Ju
Celebration? Yes.
Celebration, yeah. So a jubilee is a biblical concept. It's a
Hmm.
cyclical time of forgiveness for
Yes.
spiritual and economic debts, right? It's
Mhm.
recognizing that, in life and society, things get out of balance, and every once in a while you need to reevaluate, reset, and re-examine how things are running. And so this is a 50-year concept, and as you know, we just celebrated our 250th birthday here in the United States, right? And so this
Mhm.
is a perfect time for a 50-year jubilee. It's a perfect time to examine how life in the United States is working or not working for people and see what structures should be reset, rebuilt so that they can serve 100%.
And And what I would like to bring up is that we live in such a fast paced world that we forget to reflect and reset because we're always on to the next thing. And we're bringing up the negativity and looking at the news 5 times a day and saying what we don't like, but not understanding that we can do something about it instead of just look and complain. And in that, with what you are describing as the Jubilee, to sit back and reflect and take charge as well, because once you find out what you've done in the past, when you find out where you're actually standing right now, the next step would be, what am I going to do about this?
Absolutely. And as I said, a jubilee is a time of forgiveness for spiritual and economic debts. And I'm
Mhm.
sure in a few days we'll talk more about economic debts and how the United States can deal with those. But today we want to talk about a jubilee for justice and the spiritual debt of mass incarceration in the United
Mm.
States. How do we forgive ourselves for the policy choices that have been made over the last 50 years that have set us up in a system where 2 million of 2 million Americans wake up behind bars every single day, right? Joanne, we are not the most evil country in the world. We got
Mm-mm.
4% of the world's population and 20% of the world's prison population. So something has gone wrong. Remember, we've
Mm.
talked about the preamble to the Constitution and the five duties in there. And the first duty is to establish justice.
Mm.
So clearly, we're failing. And so a Jubilee for Justice is an opportunity to re-examine those systems, to see what can be reset, what can be rebuilt in a way that, makes us, as all millions and millions of school children say in school every day, right? One nation with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, yes. And I understand that. And when you talked about the prison system, it is so broken because we keep talking about the word justice. But I don't know if people know what justice actually means because my justice and someone else's justice is going to get them behind bars because of that. And we have so many different laws, and we're so divided in America that what happens in Georgia is not happening in North Carolina. And then I drive over here and I'm behind bars because I went through a red light. And then the other person is actually getting away with murder because of some loophole that a lawyer's entire job is to say, I will get you free, regardless to whether you've committed the crime or not. So, with this incarcerated thing, tell me more about why so many people are in, and is it because of the word injustice?
Well, there's lots of reasons that our prison population has exploded over the last 5 decades. And to be fair, it has leveled off, in the last 10 years, but it's still far, far higher than it was in the 60s and 70s. And the greatest driver of that is the war on drugs.
Mm.
That has been a huge driver of mass incarceration. And so as we have an opportunity to reflect the number of people who are locked up for 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years for things that maybe didn't harm anyone else.
Yeah.
And we need to ask ourselves as a society, what are the consequences of doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many kids are going to sleep tonight without a dad to read a story to them because
Mm-hmm.
that father's locked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've destroyed many families through
Mm-hmm.
our system of mass incarceration. And one of the things that has made this worse, right, is the idea of mandatory minimums, that judges should have no discretion, that Congress says, well, whatever you did, no matter the circumstances, bang, it's this many years. And those long, lengthy sentences really contribute to that exploding prison population.
Yes. And what happens once a person is released from prison, and how does that affect the rest of their lives? Is that justice? You've served your time, but now you can't have an ordinary life ever again.
Well,
You stole the car, and so does that mean now that's a federal crime? Does that mean that I can't vote? So now I can't vote with Brian?
so I don't want to be too fatalistic. Many people do go, come out of prison and go on to have,
No.
normal
Mm-hmm.
lives.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to recognize that the system is not necessarily set up to help people succeed in doing that. And in many ways, it is stacked against them. That when they come out of released from incarceration, that they're not set up to succeed. And so, as you know, my campaign is about collectively bargaining for a better social contract for the passage of a legislative package called the Populist Act. And so the
Mm-hmm.
Populist Act will address many of these things on a federal level, including
Okay.
repealing mandatory minimums, including
Mm-hmm.
de-escalating the war on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and including in addressing these, setting people up, giving people a foundation for success with a system of UBI, unconditional basic income, to give people an economic floor to rebuild their lives on. Joann, we've talked about the fast for peace, and I've been doing this for many years. And I write to incarcerated people, and
Mm-hmm.
the fasting is something that a shared experience we can have together on both sides of the prison walls. And I can tell you that a lot of I communicate with one man, he's about my age in Washington State, and he made some really poor decisions as a teenager. And
Mm-hmm.
he is well aware that they were bad decisions. But
Mm-hmm.
he was sentenced to 50 years to life. And
Mm.
as a teenager, the judge threw his life away. And as part of rebalancing our system on love, we've got to recognize that people
Mm-hmm.
are redeemable, that people are capable of
Yes.
self-improvement and not disposable.
Mm-hmm.
So a jubilee is an opportunity to address those sorts of things.
And those things happen again because of the social division that we have. Because for someone else to get in prison for the same thing with a great lawyer with great money behind them would not have to suffer that. And there are people that are in or being educated, and they're getting degrees while they're in prison. Not everyone has that opportunity, or it's not given to them, or maybe they just need counseling so that they can get the open mindedness to understand you are going to get out. And when you get out, you need to be ready. Those are the things that need to be presented. There are some things out there, but people are not taking advantage of them because they don't know about them. And with the closed mindedness that some of the people have that are there, and they are still being visited by people with closed mind. I would like to know, with different acts, can everybody be given the same opportunities? And the opportunities are there, but to let them know or to put them in a space mentally that they need to do this. It's almost like we have to go to school. We have to go to elementary school. Can we do that so that we raise the bar on them becoming better? Because there is some things that are given to them, or I'm not going to say given, but it's visible, it's there for them, but they don't select to do that. Maybe like to do some schooling or whatever. How does that work? Can that be done?
Absolutely. And we can shape people's lives to help people have better lives and to make better decisions. That my friend in prison in Washington State, he grew up in a very poor neighborhood. He describes on his podcast getting robbed at knife point at 9 years old for the
Mm-hmm,
newspaper that his
mm-hmm,
grandfather had sent him to buy. Right? How does that shape your worldview, growing up in that environment, and how does it affect the decisions that you make?
mm-hmm.
When we can address these sorts of issues and give people the resources and the opportunity to make better choices, people generally will. Again, this is to bring it back to Dr. King, right? Is the universe is on the side of justice. That people, given the chance, will usually do the right thing, will
Mm-hmm.
usually make good choices. And so,
Yes.
if we can structure society in a way that encourages that and helps them do that, we will drive down the demand for
Mm-hmm.
mass incarceration or for any sort of incarceration.
And to, what I would like to encourage people to do is to think outside of themselves. Because when it's not happening to you, you don't care. That's their problem. But where there's injustice for one, it's injustice for all. And that is a quote by Dr. King.
Yes.
We need to be united and to understand that as a united area in government and in all policies, that we can always edify each other. And you don't know who that person is that you are befriending. You don't know who that person is that is a physician or that person that's your waitress. So why wouldn't you want everyone to level up? I want everyone that I come in contact with to be the best that they can be, not
Absolutely.
under my thoughts, but the best that they can be. And if I can offer resources, and this is what this is about, offering a resource that it's available to you, this is where you can go and get it, and this is how it's done. And if you fall, you can get back up, and that's for sure. But I want them to have a desire. And I think that starts in elementary school. There are times where you don't come from a great home. But what can we do when you walk through the doors of the school? What can we do if you have a church? What can you do if you have employers? Can I be the best that when I speak to you, I can be friendly and not be snobbish because we are wearing different clothes, because I talk differently than you do? That is what I mean. It's called being united, and it's called being courageous, and it is called resetting, as we said in an earlier uh, area about Jubilee. Resetting. This is what it's all about. And I know that Brian can talk more about love.
I can, right? Love means recognizing people's capacity for self-improvement, and that Jubilee is an opportunity to, both as an individuals and as a nation, to reinvent ourselves. Um, you know, Something you said a minute ago inspired or reminded me of something that Brian Stevenson, the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, says, which is that everybody is more than the worst thing that they have ever done, and that not to let bad decisions, let that be the judgment of all that a person is capable of. Right?
Mm-hmm,
We're all undergoing change all the time, right? I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I
mm-hmm.
imagine you're not. You've changed as well, and we as a
Yes,
nation are changing.
yes,
We're not the
yes,
same nation we were 10 years ago,
right.
and so the Jubilee is an opportunity to ask, what kind of nation do we want to be? What are the values that
Mm-hmm,
drive us and inspire us? And
mm-hmm.
I continue to believe the preamble of the Constitution offers a really good set of values for
Yes.
us, as a nation, and one that we
Domestic
can share.
tranquility.
Absolutely, yes, and establishing justice and then promoting the general welfare. Joanne, have you
Hmm.
ever looked up the word welfare in the dictionary? Probably
No,
not.
I have not.
We
No.
we talk about welfare, right? Maybe we think of government welfare, corporate welfare, but if you look it up in the dictionary, it
Hmm.
means health, happiness, prosperity, well-being. These are the things that when the framers wrote the Constitution said, Congress, you're in charge of promoting health, happiness, and prosperity. And just so that there was no mistake, they wrote it not just in the preamble, but also in Article 1, Section 8. Congress shall promote the general welfare. And so when we recognize that, it's easier to say that in America we should have things like universal health care. We should promote the general health, right? We should promote prosperity by making sure people have a strong economic foundation. And we should promote strong communities and really try and live up to that duty in the Constitution. And so a
Yeah.
jubilee is an opportunity for the United States to have self-improvement of our own and to say, look, in our 250th year, we're going to reinvent ourselves. We're going to turn our country in a positive direction. We don't have to hit bottom, but people who love this country all across this country can come together through shared self-sacrifice, seize the moral high ground to put us on this path to a
Mhm.
bright, bountiful future.
And this is what we do here. This is what we do here on this podcast. This is what we're doing. We're introducing words that you already have heard of, you think you know of, but you did not dive into it to break it down and find out exactly what that means. We want to bring that kind of education back to you where we slow it down. And what words are we using? And what does that actually mean to me today in 2026? What does that actually mean? And how can I be a part of this? And how can my vote make a difference? And we can go along with Brian and we can fast intentionally with this, knowing that we can have peace and knowing that we'll have direction and clarity in our lives to make a difference. And I want you to tune in again with our next segment, which is called Unstacking Wall Street. But before I close out, Brian is going to tell you how you can contact him.
Yeah, you can learn more about my campaign and how the United States can have a jubilee this year, how we can reinvent ourselves, how we can change our directions and improve the quality of life for every single American. You'll learn more on my website, votewithbrian.com. And yeah, and I look forward to our continuing our conversation tomorrow, Joann.
Okay, that sounds great. And I look forward to seeing you. Don't forget, subscribe so you'll know that we have a new segment out. Bye bye.